Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University here, and I just got finished reading Warhammer 40k, Will of Iron, Part 1 of 4. Part 2 comes out November 9th, and this one was good. This is a good book. Basically, Warhammer 40k, anybody who clicked on this video, you probably know what 40k is. It's a miniatures game, right? And it's fun. It's not fun to watch. I fell asleep first time I watched it played. That's not a way to introduce somebody into the game. But when you actually play the game, it's pretty exciting. It's cool and it's suspenseful and it's tense. It's on the edge. The comic books, much like the books, I read one of the novels, only one of them. It was the one where they introduced the Necrons. Can't remember the name of the book. Somebody in the comments will explain it, I'm sure, hopefully. But what do you call it? Yeah, I always liked Space Marines pretty well, but Necrons were always my favorite, and my backup army was Space Wolves. But yeah, this comic, it was good in the sense that, much like the novels, it gives you a lot of the history, a lot of the backstory. Now, they give three main characters that are prominent here: Space Marine Baltus, Interrogator Chaplain Althadius. Somebody's going to get mad at me and cyber punch me for butchering these names. And Inquisitor Sebathiel. These are the three pointed characters that they're introducing us to in the very beginning. Give us a quick backstory on them. Now, I don't remember seeing Baltus in the comic. It's kind of annoying. The other guys, yeah, they're pretty prominent, they're pretty obvious. Now, kicking right into this, Lord Azrael has a small retinue of his most trusted advisors, and he orders them to go into the Califrax cluster. Now, this had been closed off due to warp energies and lightning storms and all sorts of really weird things that don't allow you to enter. The typical stuff of chaos, you know? Chaos has been there for like 10,000 years, and there's so much destruction and crazy stuff going on in space. My hands are actually tired of doing this now. That that nobody could enter that for the longest time, that huge area. So now, for some reason, all those energies have subsided. Now, mind you, this is my very first Warhammer 40k comic I'm reading. So maybe one of the other ones that Titan Comics has released explains why the Califrax cluster has diminished, temporarily at least, but I don't know myself, and they didn't give a backstory here. Now, there's a lot of history shrouded in mystery in the Califrax cluster, the whole area, so they're ordered to go and essentially, what it seems to me is planet by planet, to eliminate all evidence of what happened there. Apparently there's big history there with the Dark Angels, and yeah, they don't want this history out there. For whatever reason, it's going to interfere with their religion or their version of the religion, their version of history. So some secrets are better left hidden. And, you know, it is 40k. Maybe they're going out looking for artifacts also and things like that. Who knows? But more and more people are getting involved in this. And Inquisitor Sebathiel hears about this, and she decides to go in and try and force the hand of some of these other Space Marines and versions thereof in order to prove that they've actually become corrupted by chaos, or that they're traitors to the cause, to the religion, so that she can, well, do what Inquisitors do, which is not very nice. So they go there, and sure enough, they do meet some resistance, but it's not organized at all. It's small individuals affected by chaos who just kind of, you know, come out and get shot up. They're cannon fodder. No real action happens in this comic, which scares me, because this is issue 1 of 4, only 4. So without much happening here, the first 4-issue miniseries I was ever introduced to in the comics was Transformers. And there was so much happening in those comics. Like, it was exhausting to my, what was I, 10, 8, something like that. I was young when I read those comics. So, yeah, I read them when they first came out. But Yeah, forget about it. Here, there's not much action. There's a little bit of dialogue, but not a lot of dialogue. There's not that splash page in the beginning, which I've indicated is all too important. In fact, the Dark Tower comic that I reviewed this week also, I complained that that one didn't have a forward, in a sense, to introduce you to this world, to this understanding. And here also, Chaos shows up at the end, the army of Chaos, and says, okay, well, we're going to have to go in and kick some butt, basically. Unless you recognize the symbol of Chaos, you have no idea these guys are Chaos. Maybe you look at one guy and say, why does his hand look like that? Or why does this guy's face look like that? He looks kind of like Jonah Hex, and, you know, little things like that. But for the most part, you are not going to be having any clue as to what's going on. You will quite literally be lost. And you will put the comic down, and you will either not buy it or not buy any more. And that's a huge problem. For, you know, Marvel Comics actually did the Dark Tower comic that I reviewed. This is Titan Comics. Maybe you're a super huge fan and you know other things that they've done. I personally don't. So this is one of those kind of things where maybe these guys should step up their game a little bit and give a bit of history as a jumping on point, because any comic could be a jumping on point. I'm going to give you an example. When the second volume of the Wolverine comic, the first Wolverine comic, the volume 1 of Wolverine is considered issue 1 through 4, where it goes back to Japan with Mariko and all that good stuff. But volume 2 is that lengthy series, which went on for a really long time, and thankfully so. And in every single one of those issues, Wolverine at some point, usually in the very beginning of the issue, would say, I'm the best there is at what I do. But what I do ain't very nice. Now, in the letters section, people would make comments all the time about, you know, it's cool what Wolverine says, best there is, what I do. You know, he sounds kind of like a Bret Hart kind of thing, but, you know, best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. But, you know, when you hear somebody say that all the time, it gets annoying. Here's the thing. The response back from the Marvel editors was, you got to understand that every single comic is a starting off point for someone else. Every single comic is someone's first comic. So they've got to introduce Wolverine in that way. And it's just the first page, it's just the opening, and if it bothers you that much, skip it. You don't have to be obsessive compulsive and read every single narrator's box. And if you see that's going to be in that narration's box, skip it. Skip the entire first page if you want, whatever. And that was important to me. That was a very early understanding in my early teens, recognizing that, hey man, it's true. Every comic is someone's first comic. So you have to keep that in mind with this. And as good as this comic was, establishing a little bit of a backstory, establishing the setup, I should say, more than anything else, but a little bit of the backstory, the fact is, if this was someone's first Warhammer comic, as it is mine, you're going to be a little lost. And I can just imagine someone who's never even played Warhammer before. You're not going to recognize that chaos symbol. You're not going to know what's going on. You just see a bunch of humans, some of them in various stages of, you know, decay and wounds, war wounds, and you're not going to have any idea what's happening here. And that's not how you sell comics. So guys, if you've read this stuff before, this is good. This is a good comic, and it sets up what I think is going to be a pretty good series of comics, not just this 4 issues. I believe there's going to set up a good series of comics that could even be several spin-offs at a time. They could easily turn this into something where every week a new issue is coming out of a different series. Absolutely. That's the potential I see with this comic. The thing that kills me, and no joke, it twists at my heart, is that somebody's going to pick this comic up as the first ever Warhammer comic they've ever read, and like me, but unlike me, never had any exposure to 40k. and they've got a friend who's saying, hey man, you got to play 40k with me, it's the best stuff, read one of the novels, read something, you'll like it. So they go to the comic book store and they're buying their Hulk and their Spider-Man and whatever else they're going to buy, and they say, oh, 40k, it's an issue number 1, you know what, let me find out about this stuff. And they'll look at it and they're going to say, I have no damn clue what's going on here. And yeah, you don't want to have a comic book explained to you. You don't. So guys, this is Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Guys, class dismissed.